Firing up the grill, having a picnic, going to a game, or the beach? Stop by Acme Markets for juicier Lancaster brand meats for the grill, fresher cut fruits and vegetables, tastier desserts from our bakery, and all of your snack needs. This week, pick up fresh boneless, skinless chicken breast for $1.69 a pound when you buy 3 pounds or more. And stop by the produce department and get 6-ounce containers of fresh blackberries, blueberries, or raspberries. Buy one, get one free. Acme, your new favorite local supermarket.
And this is Ted Hicks, Late Night Parent Radio. This is our podcast that we usually bring to you on Wednesday nights, but this is a special night to do the show, to do something more on the local side. Ways to get in contact with us: the dial-in number is 347-857-1947. Ways to get in contact with the show: latenightparents.com is the website, lmp.tv for those of you that are lazy, facebook.com/late night parents. I'm on Twitter as the real Ted Hicks, and you can also find me at Late Night Parent. So really excited to do this show tonight. We opened up the lines because I've named the show, so we usually do a specific name per show. I named it Late Night Parents, Stop the Violence, because we're going to talk with several people tonight. This is a local issue. You know, we're addressing a local issue, but it's a national issue. We're talking about black-on-black violence. We're talking about the upcoming Peace in the Streets rally. I know in the queue we're probably going to have Minister Hafeez Muhammad, Minister James Muhammad, and Reverend Reginald Benjamin in the queue. Want to thank those radio partners that play us near and far, the folks out in the media. You guys make things happen all the time. Want to thank our friends at UNIR1 Radio. Want to thank our friends at Life Improvement Radio. Want to thank the Underground, the Under.US 90, for always playing us out in Missouri. Want to thank you guys. Want to thank AMFM247.com that plays us in 10 different markets. It's too many to name. Want to thank our friends, the 405 Media, which plays us out in LA. Also, the Happy Hour Network that plays us on the internet everywhere. And 1240 AM WGBB in Long Island. As always, want to thank all of our media partners that play us, whether through podcasts or streaming live on your specific websites, and those of you that air us live. We couldn't do it without you, without your help and your participation. So, you know, we had a conversation. I saw something on Facebook. And on Facebook, it said something about the upcoming Dream Big, the back-to-school celebration for the Able-Bodied Believers Alliance that's going to happen August 27th. And I'm backing my way into this story because from there, I reached out to Reverend Reginald Benjamin. And there's a lot of people that are making things happen in the village of Hempstead. So along with that, we had that conversation, and then we started to dig deeper. We started to talk about some of the issues that are facing our village, some of the issues, because yes, I'm a member and a resident of Hempstead Village. We started, we always talk about jobs. We would always talk about, the black-on-black crime. We've talked extensively about, the various cop shootings that have gone on, Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter. We watch it on TV and we kind of sit there and say, well, what would we do in that situation? So as we took a step back, Reverend Benjamin, and we spoke about it, and I felt very strongly about this cause that's going to happen at Campbell Park this Saturday in Hempstead. So I invited him to our show on 1240 AM WGBB to have this discussion, an open and honest discussion about what's happening in the world with African Americans and Latinos. We're going to get into all of that tonight. I haven't set a time frame for tonight's podcast because usually we do a 60-minute show. And, with the promos and everything else, it's roughly running time is about 52 to 54 minutes. Tonight, there's no promos. There's nothing about that. I want to thank our friends at Verizon Fios that support our show on 1240 AM WGBB. So I'm going to open it up and speak with our guests right now. And I have a 631 number online right now. Who am I speaking with right now?
Yeah, this is Brother James. Greetings, Ted Hicks and the Late Night Parents family. Glad to be on board, and I appreciate you much for allowing us to come on, talk about peace in the streets and all the things that are dealing with trying to save young black and brown lives. Thank you, my brother.
No doubt. Hold on, let me bring on the next person. And we have a 516 number. I'll give the first three numbers of that exchange, 262. Who we have on the line?
This is Rev Reginald Benjamin. Just want to thank you so much, Ted, for giving us the opportunity to talk about an issue that is critical to the village of Hempstead, to our community, to the families, and to so many young people that are losing their lives in our community. We want to talk about how we can address this issue and come up with proactive ways to reduce violence in the community.
Definitely. So I want to thank Minister Muhammad and Reverend Benjamin for joining. We hear there's a little bit of distortion in the background, but hopefully I'll be able to clean it up after this discussion. I guess I'll start right here. We had a great discussion on Saturday, and we wanted to continue it. We had the whole, I guess, emphasis of it is to keep the discussion going. Now, along with that, we started talking about disparities that are happening nowadays. There's a gap along with African American and Latino men that we're dealing with nowadays. There's the family, the home, is broken. There's the disparity in wealth, education. There's so many different places to start. I will say this much. First and foremost, before anyone's going to listen to any of us, the first question I have to throw out there, how do we address the issue of young Latino and African Americans not having jobs? And I'll just open it up there. Because we will be able to pull people to listen to this podcast after the fact, but it's all about, I think it always comes down to it, it's all about jobs. So, Mr. James, Reverend Reginald, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to defer
Let
to
me just
Reginald.
start it off. That's one of the issues that is critical to my heart. I'm also a chaplain in Nassau County Jail. And one of the things that I discovered with a lot of the young people, and I posed the question, I said, you guys are doing really, to me, what amounts to is petty crimes, petty thievery. And it's just ruining your life because once you get a record, people are always going to hold that against you and look at you as if you've done a crime yesterday. It could have been 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but people are always going to look at that record and look at you out the side of their face. So I asked, what would be the minimum amount of money, and I'm talking to young people now, these are 18 through 24-year-olds, and I'm saying, what would be a minimum amount of money or job, and you would consider a decent pay? To my surprise, Brother Ted, to a man, they all said about $10 an hour. I said $10 an hour would keep you off the streets. And most of them said yes, because they don't have any income. They don't have any. Even McDonald's wasn't hiring this group of guys. So I said within myself, that's something that we're going to go out and try to do something about. So starting in 2008, I had a person on my board. He was the chairman of my board, and he owns a construction company. And so what I did with him is I said, let's take a couple of guys and give them an opportunity to go to work. And he said, yeah, well, we'll take them on. We'll give them $100 a day for 5 days. And so we took them down. We had to go all the way down to Brooklyn to Nostrum Avenue. They had a Nostrum Avenue Baptist Church that joined with us. And we had those guys working down there doing demolition work to help renovate that particular church, and was making a mere $500 a week. You would be surprised at the change in the attitudes and disposition of those young men. It compelled me and propelled me to go out and do more about this issue. So we started going to contractors that was working in the local community, in the village of Hempstead, and we simply said one thing to them: you're working in our communities. We're asking you to give the people that live in the village an opportunity to go to work and do some of those jobs. They can do the labor job. You can start teaching them skills and things like that. They need the opportunity. Amazingly, a lot of these companies took that up. One job, we got about 60 guys at. We got another job, 30 guys was able to go to work. And over the years, we have been able to take these young men and put them in construction companies. Some of them as laborers. Some of them had went to school to get some basic training, electrical training, plumbing, carpentry. And we was able to place those guys in various construction jobs. And lo and behold, many of those guys have gone on and prospered and turned their lives around in terms of the issue of jobs. So I recently connected with Brother James Muhammad. There's a number of minority contractors out here, and many of them, in fact, was pleading to some of these big developers, saying, give minorities contractors an opportunity to get some of these contracts, and we can put people in the local community to work. And so what we did is galvanize and put together a team of people called a multi-trade minority contractors group. And our intention is to acquire some of the jobs in the local community, some of the contracts, and make sure that they place these young people to work. Now, I say that I'm also a consultant for the village of Hempstead. Because of the work that I was doing, they gave me the assignment to become the Job and Small Business Referral Center. And over the last few years, I've had over 1,200 guys that we have pre-screened, we have did intake on, and we've been doing training with the focus towards helping them to get a number of jobs as this development unfolds. Unfortunately, let me say this, and one of the things that we have problems with, there are so many people that are fighting against it. We're back and forth through the courts, Article 78 and all of that. Now, I say all that to say this. One of the things that we want to do, we don't want to just go out in the streets and tell young people stop the violence, stop selling drugs, and stop doing this without giving them an alternative. So we developed, are in the process of continuing to develop a program that would help to give these young people an opportunity, particularly the men I'm focused at. We are concerned about women also. We have employed a lot of them. But the bulk of the issue lies with young men inability to find decent employment. So our goal is to take these young men, train them, prepare them, and place them in various construction trades so they can have career-oriented jobs. And so these are some of the things that we're trying to do. And I know, James, you can speak to that a little bit more.
Yes, I can. And first, let me just say that it is my line that is probably giving that hum and buzz. I'm around a lot of electronics right now, and there's an issue. But I want to say, and hopefully I'm clear, that when we are dealing with young black and Latino boys and girls, they have to first understand that since the beginning of written history, man has been known for his vocation. And so if you don't have a skill set or a job, you're not thought of. You're nothing to speak of. You have no true identity. And so with the multi-trade minority contractors group, one of the things that has been stated as part of our purpose and mission is to mentor young men, young ladies who are searching for their own self-identity, giving them a vocation in a career path by men and women who have been in the field for sometimes 25 to 30 years and more in terms of building and the construction trades. We realize that the continuity of learning and earning starts with people making the sacrifice and strategically aligning themselves with the community. That's what the multi-trade minority group is doing, and is positioning itself to help many men and women like right now. So I want to say to you is that until we solve the issue of providing wholesome and direct training that results in jobs, and not just jobs, we're talking about careers, and we're not just talking careers, we're talking let us teach people how to get into business and sustain business and be successful at it. So that is the model in which the multi-trade minority group is approaching the Hempstead area. And if we can do it here, we feel we can do it anywhere, but this is where we start. So I just wanted to put that out there.
No, that's definitely understood, and I want to thank both of you for those responses. Very, very thorough. I just want to throw something out here because I know the goal of what we're trying to obtain, and with Saturday being the rally, the Peace in the Streets rally, and I want to commend both of you on the work that, not that you're just doing for the rally, but your life's work of being in the community and working with those that are less fortunate. So, but I have to throw this out, that when I read it, I've done some research, and it says right here, one of the facts, 44% of the population in jail are blacks, even though blacks make up overall 13% of general population. Now it's easy for us to assign this to stop and frisk, or the old school TNT tactics of, hey, if you pull someone over, you might get someone who's not clean or something like that. But as being a black male and head of household, brothers, I got to ask you, why aren't we doing better? Why aren't we doing better? And with the Peace in the Streets rally, how are we going to address that comment or that statistic? How do we drive that number down? If we're almost half of the population in the jails, but we only make up 13% of the general population.
Well, to be quite clear with you, that number, it sounds like you're lowballing that number in terms of 44%. Let me just say this here. I am an ex-offender myself. God has blessed me, has delivered me I've been out of the criminal justice system for the last 30 years now. But prior to that, as a young man, from the age of 14 all the way up until I became about 27, I was in and out of the criminal justice system. And just so I came to a point in my life that I was tired of that cycle, and I determined to do whatever it would take to break that pattern. Having said that, we all know, and this is no revelation to anybody, but even the federal government has acknowledged there has been some disparity in the administration of justice. A lot of our people are getting treated differently for the same crime that people of other nationality are committing on a regular basis. Let me give you a picture. Working in the jail, I had a young guy. He actually belonged to a middle-class family. He was a young kid, 18 years old, 17 years old at the time. He and his friend took another guy's bike, and I realized that in itself is a horrible thing. But when this young man and took this bike from it, they turned that crime from a bike theft, turned it into a strong armed robbery, took that young man and gave him 3 years, a determined sentence, meaning that he had to do 85% of that time. Now, let's say that was an act of justice. But by the same token, my friend, who I worked with, a Jewish fellow that I worked with when I was working with Long Island Youth Mentoring, he told me this story, and he's almost laughing about it. He told me the story about a bunch of kids, him and his crew, went out to people's houses, went in front of their houses, took the bike off of each house, and it was over about 10 houses. He said the police officer came and pulled them over, stopped them, and made them go back to every house and deliver those bikes to each house. And then they took these kids. They didn't take them to jail. Guess where they took them? They took them home to their parents. To me, that's an example of the disparity in the administration of justice. Multiply that over hundreds of thousands, and you'll see why so many African Americans are ending up in the criminal justice system. It's all over television, radio, the Department of Justice, all recognizes the fact that we have been given an uneven hand when it comes down to the administration of justice. They do it based on race. There's nothing they can say or do to get around that. They admit it themselves. So we have to deal with our kids, begin to talk to them and help them to understand what they're facing, and put in some programs that will help these kids as an alternative to going into the criminal justice, alternative to committing crime. And that's what I've dedicated my life to try to short-circuit some of our young men and women from ending up in the criminal justice system.
Well, I want to add to this conversation by first saying that if we do not know the root of the problem, we have no chance of solving it. When you look at those dismal numbers, those are reality checks. And I'll have to take it back to the essence of why we were here in America in the very first place. We were an economic tool to build a capitalist society. That use of us is no longer there. So our people are being warehoused. Instead of the plantation where we got acquainted with the slave maker, the slave master, and the slave trader, now we are acquainted with the criminal justice system, the correction system, and then the law enforcement system. They just have replaced our past intense, painful experiences with new names. We're damaged people, and until we address all our needs, meaning not just the jobs, because that is a major component to it, the financial aspect of us being able to take care of our family and to provide a future for our people, there's a lot more that goes into that because we have been damaged. And what you see coming out of us in terms of our behavior, it comes out of us, it seeps out of us out of frustration in the form of self-abusive behavior. And this is why you have us picking up guns and shootings and stabbings and robbing one another, and the end result is that we get incarcerated for those things. Now, not to say that everybody that's in jail and incarcerated is absolutely guilty. There may be some of us who are in there who just got swept up and put into jail and don't have a legal recourse to adequately defend themselves. But I'm speaking about for the majority of that 44% who have been engaging in wrongful activity. It is because they are lost, and we have to reclaim them. They are psychologically damaged, which means that they mentally are not capable of constantly doing the right thing, and this is sad to say, but this is what we're dealing with, but there's a remedy for that. And to make it real quick.
But, James, I'd like to just add to that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that Minister Muhammad is talking about is conflict resolution.
Yes,
and
sir.
I want to deal with the fact that even though many of the people that end up in the criminal justice system may be in there for a crime or something like that, but oftentimes many of these young men, when they end up, they know in some form or another they have been mistreated. They know in one form or another they didn't get the justice that they deserved. They wasn't treated in proportion of whatever the crime they have committed. We've had situations where it's insane. The penal justice, the penal code. It could be a misdemeanor or a felony just by how they word it. And they particularly word it when it comes down to people of color in such a way so they maximize the amount of time they give them. And this is not something I'm just talking about off the cuff. I don't know if anybody ever read that book by Michelle Alexander called The New Jim Crow. It talks about how it was a systemic I don't want to use the word conspiracy, but it was a systemic program put in place targeting African American, the African American community. The so-called war on drugs was really another way of incarcerating African Americans and Latinos. Even Bill Clinton and his wife have publicly apologized because they had instituted some code or system whereby African Americans and Latino was discouraged, was targeted more than anybody else. And so I want to go back to the point where I really wanted to talk about the fact that some of these men understand that they have been treated unfairly, and so they walk the street angry. They walk the street with a certain level of rage because they may not know the law, but they know that they have been treated unjustly through the criminal justice system. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not one of those kinds of persons that is trying to push any militant agenda. I'm talking about the facts. I wish that everybody in America would read that book, The New Jim Crow, because it spells it out, how African Americans have been mistreated and not experienced justice, but in fact have experienced a certain level of injustice. So if you find people angry on the street, when you know you've been wrong, they have no redress to it, it comes out in anger. And that's why I appreciate the Minister Muhammad, talking about creating a program to help do conflict resolution. All of that stuff plays out on the street. So we got to help get some of the anger out of our people, get some of the rage out of our people, help them to deal with their problems and resolve their issue without resorting to deadly force. And those are some of the things that we want to do. And I believe that this particular event that we're going to have on August 13th over at Camel Park is just the start of that, because we're planning on doing that on the 27th. I've expanded our back-to-school program to include violence in the streets or peace in the streets. So we are we are looking at how we can get our young people to understand the danger that they're facing and the fact that killing one another is no solution to our problems.
Mm.
I think that's a great segue to what I was about to mention, and it's right on point and right on time, because over let's just say roughly over the last 2 years. Over the last 2 years, between Periscope and Facebook Live and any other live streaming app, there's footage. There's been footage available that we've seen, whether it's on Fox or CNN or NBC or CBS or even ABC. Yes, they are the media, but we've seen black people being shot in the street like dogs.
Mm.
But I want to say this much. Before we rip on law enforcement about them doing black people wrong, tell me your thoughts on just the level of black, because before we can uprise and talk about, the Black Lives Matter movement, the first thing anyone goes back to is the level of black on black crime, the high amount of black on black crime. I mean, you mentioned the conflict resolution. This is needed. This conference is going to be needed. It's needed in every urban city,
yes,
across America, because for us to make a difference. Just your thoughts, both of your thoughts on the level of black on black crime. How do we lower it? How do we get each other to turn the other cheek? How do we just get to say, you know what, this doesn't make sense to take it to this level?
Well, let me just start this one off, because I think understanding what the components of the conflict resolution normally implies us trying to mediate a problem between two people. But for those of us who understand it in its real, true form, it's about us trying to reach into an individual where he is conflicted in his own mind and heart. So when we talk about these black on black crime, it is because somehow deeply rooted in the mind, the spirit, in the heart of the individual, he does not love himself, and he's acting and living on self-hatred, whether they're conscious of it or not. See, those, as I mentioned earlier, those intense, painful experiences that we had in the past is being revisited every time you see a death of us killing one another, or the visualization of those who're supposed to protect us killing us outright. Those intense experiences produces so much pain, as I stated the last time I mentioned, that it affects our conscious and unconscious mind, and we become self-destructive. The bottom line is this. When we look at our people, we have to see them as sick, and we can't see ourselves outside of our own people. So we have to be the patient and the doctor at the same time.
Yeah, and James, let me just add to that. Listen, I'm a former gang member myself. When I was a kid, from like 14 until I ended up in the criminal justice system, I was involved with one of the biggest gangs in the South Bronx. And one of the things that I've come to understand, if that became a lifestyle, it became I won't call it a culture, but an anti-culture. And it was just us rallying together to survive in a hostile community, in a hostile world, in a hostile environment. And I'm talking about the 70s now, when we was just entering out of the 60s and all of the different riots and all of the different violence that were taking place in that situation. One of the things that we are missing, and one of the safe havens for our community, is spirituality. And I'm using that as a predicate for what I want to say. And this is the thing. I had 8 brothers in my family. One of my brothers was following in my footsteps. But at that time, by that time I had made up in my mind I was no longer going to be a part of the streets. I was no longer going to be a part of the problem. And I found myself getting involved with a community organization, getting involved with the church, and I learned a certain amount of moral principles and certain amount of moral discipline. Well, lo and behold, under normal circumstances, if you did anything to any member of my family, retaliation was the first recourse. Now, my brother, who was living a violent life, he was not an angel. Somebody had shot him in the back 7 times. And if I were not, and my other brother, who was the president of the gang that he was involved with, had been a Muslim for a period of time. Now, normally, me and my brother would have instantly reacted, got strapped up, and went back to the streets and found those people who did that and retaliated, thus perpetuating the violence. But because I had learned certain principles and certain things was instilled in me, I found a better way to deal with that situation. You know what I'm saying? So we have to begin to train our kids. We have to begin to teach our young people certain moral principles and change the way they think. The way that they think is an eye for an eye really doesn't work. So that's a way that we're talking about reducing crime, talking about sitting down with our young people, talking about the issues that they're struggling with. That's why I keep emphasizing this conflict resolution thing, because that gives us a time to sit down with one another to talk about the issues that we're struggling with, talk about the triggers in our life, talk about the situations that lead us to act in violent ways, talk about what triggered us off. Talk about that anger that we are afraid to talk about. Now, I'm not anti-police. One of the reasons why I'm not anti-police because when I was getting my life together, there was a detective that came alongside of me. Now, I'm an ex-offender. He's a detective, and we entered into a relationship with one another where we built a level of trust that it was so dramatic that I didn't have a father in my life, and this guy came alongside of me, and he says, you know what? Brother Reggie, he says, I realize you didn't have a father in your life and you realize you don't think that you have an issue with that. He says, but I want to take the place of your father for 1 minute, just for 1 minute. And he started counting off a whole list of things that he was asking me forgiveness for. Forgive me for abandoning you. Forgive me for not being there for me, for you. Being there, forgive me for abandoning your brother. And you know what? I thought I was a tough guy. But that was a moment of healing for me because in that instant, I realized that I had issues with my father not being in my life. And that is just one example of some of the issues our young people are battling with. And so we have to learn how to deal with what's inside of them. What's that anger? What's that bitterness? What's that hate that is in them that caused them to react to each other in such a violent way?
Let me just add this because you touched on that emotional part. And, you know, if you examine black folk, you'll see that we're emotionally unstable as a collective. You know, our emotional IQ is at an all-time low because we have to first learn to love and accept ourselves, and that's the process. And when we deal with conflict resolution in these centers that we're trying to bring into our community, that is one of the first steps that we have to deal with, even before we get to getting rid of the stinking thinking, the mentality of being a gangster or whatever. We have to get to the emotional part. And then eventually we raise them up to a level that they see spirituality as part of the healing process. As you said, Reggie, it took somebody, you know, to give you a word, and that word resonated with you. And it has with me as well. And we understand that that word has life in it. And if we get the opportunity to go one-on-one with our young brother and draw out the best in him, he can change his life around and then become socially acceptable. And then the corrupt morals that we have adopted can be dealt with and analyzed, and then they can build up the discipline and the strength to change their moral compass. So there's a lot of things that have to be dealt with. There's no one area more important than the other, but there are many levels that we have to attack this problem about black-on-black crime, the killing and the violence, and us going in and out in the criminal justice system.
Well, let me tell you this, James. Not only did I have an opportunity to turn my life around, but I became a part of a change agent myself, working with young people, going into the jail, talking to young folks, and offering them a different way. You'll be amazed at how receptive young people are when people take the time to come alongside of them, to come into their lives and show them a better way. Let me give you an example. There's a young lady that I work with in the jail. She was a gang member. She had went to jail for cutting somebody in the face. They gave her 5 years. I worked with the young lady while she was in the jail for that whole period of time. She came home. I hired her to work with us at the job, and for the next 2 years, she was working alongside of me, talking to young people. I'll give you an example. Some kids was going really wild in Far Rockaway. I took this young lady with me out in Far Rockaway. We had about 35 young ladies that she worked with for over the next 12 months. One of the things that she discovered and we discovered is the anger that was coming out of those kids was based on traumatic experiences they've had in their lives. And that young lady was able to identify it because she was abused herself when she was growing up, and she became an angry young person. She began to talk to those young ladies. And one of the things we discovered, the kid that was acting the worst in the class was a young girl, very cute young lady, but she was being abused at home, sexually abused. And that thing came out during the course of the conversation. So all of her acting out and acting up was based on the fact that she herself was being abused. Now, go back to this young lady. Her name is Taisha Gitt. She is now the supervisor with an organization called Snubs. And she go out on the street every single day. And she, in fact, my son is work with her. They go out on the streets every single day, and they are picking up these young people, 12, 15, 18 years old, and talking to them. And believe it or not, these kids are embracing Taisha because they can identify her. She can identify with their stories. And you'll be amazed at how these kids' lives are transformed because people took the time out to talk to them. And so what we need to do is to spend more time talking to our young people, trying to encourage them and giving them direction, because the reason why there's so much stuff going on out there, many of these kids are abandoned, single parents, broken homes, don't know what to do, not being able to survive, caught up in the social service system, and all of that. The older siblings can't get jobs and stuff like that. So we are coming up with ways to deal with all those issues. So when we approach those kids, we have something to offer them. You know what I'm saying? So these are some of the things that we are trying to do.
Well, one thing I want to add to this, the strategy that is most successful is to get peace in the streets. You have to go in the streets and be there with these young people, meet them where they're at. We can't expect for them to come to us who have gotten our lives together for counsel and support and guidance because they have lost the ability to trust. So when we go out there in the streets, there's a couple of things that have to happen in order to build that trust up. We have to give them the opportunity to tell us what's going on with their lives, meaning we have to ask questions and then let them speak to us, and we must listen. See, the problem is, no, they don't think anybody's listening to them, and so they have to act out, and that's what they've been doing. The other thing is this. In each and every one of these young people who are in a dismal state, depressed because their condition seems to be not getting better and not getting better anytime soon, we have to go out there and give them information with inspiration, because you can give them information all day long. That doesn't mean that they're going to digest it and use it and walk with it. You have to inspire them and hit them in their soul so they can see clearly that there's a better way, that there's some light at the end of the tunnel. And not only do you tell them, you show them, and even sometimes you have to get up and do it for them. When they see that, they see that's genuine, unconditional love. And love is not weak. Love is an active word. It's the doing of good for one another without looking for anything in return. So this is what we have to do. Peace in the streets means you got to put your boots on the ground and go get your people and put them on the right path.
Well, that's one of the reasons, James, and I'm so glad that I was able to come alongside of you and the minister and various other community groups because we need to bring information to our young people, let them know that there are avenues and there are alternatives. That's why we believe we are partnered with Family and Children Associates to bring out the Snugs people this Saturday for the Peace in the Street rally. We have aligned ourselves with the Dakota Movement, which is a phenomenal reentry program. I just left them a few minutes ago. A lot of guys are sitting down talking about issues and the struggles that they have in their lives and finding alternative ways to deal with it. A lot of them being given jobs. A lot of them given second opportunity. A lot of them put into internship programs. So CODA is coming out to join us. We have other agencies and organizations that have services to provide to help young people who are struggling on the streets and don't know how to access resources that really is available and was set up and targeted for that purpose, to help our young people. So this peace in the street is vital. We need everybody and anybody to be able to come out so that we can be an encouragement to this community. And I want to emphasize this. We're not just going to have a rally. We're looking to have follow-up opportunities for these young people. Again, on the 27th of August, we're going to be talking about this issue again, and we have over 1,500 to 2,000 people that are coming out to that particular event. And I'll tell you a little secret, James. I had a company that called me today. They're giving us over $15,000 worth of food to give out on that day. Because let me tell you the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. There are some families out there that don't even have food on their table. They don't have school supplies, so we're going to be providing them with school supplies. They don't have decent clothes to enter to the school system with. We're going to help them with that. And we have tons and tons of organizations that are coming out to let these kids, let these families know we care about them, we are concerned about them, but we want them to have peace in the streets, to stop the violence. And for some of those young people that are having issues, anger issues, Mr. Muhammad is instituting a program. He wants to open up a house for conflict resolution so those people can have a place to go to deal with those internal issues and those struggles that compel them or cause them to go into these violent outbursts. Because I know of a lot of kids that have done things, and I've talked to them in the jail, and they'll tell me, Brother Reggie, if I had just a moment to think, I wasn't thinking, I was just angry at the moment. So we're going to give them the tools so they can start thinking before they act.
Brothers, I will have to tell you that I do have to depart in a minute, but I'll be remiss if I don't tell you that Saturday is going to be such an impactful moment for a lot of people. The man who's going to deliver the keynote address at the Peace in the Streets rally is Minister Abdul Hafeez Muhammad, the New York representative of Minister Farrakhan, and the minister of Mosque number 7 in the historic Harlem building. We have watched this man day after day for many years, consoling parents and working with families who have lost their youth to violent deaths. He has been specially prepared for this moment to really bring to light the solutions that will help us heal as a people and retard this crazy lifestyle of death and funerals and death and funerals. This man's voice and the words that has been deposited in him is really the essence of truth, because that's really what it is. He's going to speak truth, to the power within the individuals who hear his voice, and he will unlock their potential. He will put them on the course that they can change their lives. I know this because I have walked with him, and I have seen this, and I've seen it over and over again because he has one of the best teachers and best examples in the world at this time, which is Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I really want to say to you all who are listening to this program, prepare yourself to come out to get solutions. We know we have to paint the picture of what the problem is, yes, for us to understand. But he who has an ear, let him hear. You know, we are blind, deaf, and dumb, and we need to open our eyes. We need to open our heart. We need to be able to articulate what we feel. That's what it's all about right now, awakening our people. And the man of the hour today is Minister Abdul Hafeez Muhammad, and he will be present in Campbell Park at 4 p.m. sharp. Be there. All right.
So one of the things that I like about what he's trying to do, he's clearly telling people, number one, we want to make our community a decent and safe place to live in. That's number one. And that means that we have to come together to do that. We have to do it. Stop asking for other people to do what we need to do for ourselves, stopping the violence in our community. So one of his initiatives that I think is wonderful to try to do that is he wants to train over 10,000 men to have them trained in conflict resolution so that these people can hit the streets and begin to talk to the community about the violence that we are committing against ourselves. We can't blame nobody else for what we are doing against ourselves. So I think this whole initiative to train men and women to go into the streets and try to bring resolution to some of the violence and the conflict that are taking place that we are perpetrating against one another is great and is a tremendous opportunity for us to impact our own community. One of the other people that are coming out that day who's partnering with us, and I like the mayor of the village of Hempstead, Mayor Wayne Hall. He, in his last term, he put up a program to say, you know what, we're going to talk about giving people a second chance, realizing that a lot of people haven't even got a first chance. So he ran his campaign on that, and so now he wants to take that to the next level and talk to people about stop killing each other on our streets. And he's the one who's offering this program to help us to take these young men who want to stop and get off the street, to give them jobs, give them training, give them programs and services to help them to turn their lives around. So we have so many different people that are coming out. We have put all of our agendas aside. We have put all of our programs aside, and we are coming out to talk to our young people directly because we want peace in the streets. And I believe that Minister Muhammad is one of the ones that is called to help us to do this, along with so many other people that want to get involved. We have the families of a young man that was killed on this very same block. His name is Daniel McLeod. His family is coming out to encourage our people to stop killing one another and help them understand from a family perspective how that devastates families, how that does not just destroy that person, but it has a ripple effect of destroying families. And so we want to turn all of these situations around. This is what this rally is trying to institute. This is the first step, and we need people to come out, show up, and show out. And we have to begin to mend our own communities. And then we can start talking about addressing the issues of those few police officers that are acting in reckless and indecent ways towards our people. We can't tell somebody else to stop killing us if we're killing ourselves.
That's right. We must stop the killing of us by us. That is the message.
That definitely is. Hey, I just want to let you gentlemen know, there's the 3 M's, the moments, momentum, and movement. You know, movements are rare. You know, we think of civil rights as a movement. I think a moment was Occupy Wall Street a few years ago. I can see Black Lives Matter picking up the momentum, but I see this Peace in the Streets as a movement. We got to keep pushing on. We got to keep the dialogue going any which way. I'm really excited to attend this Saturday. And from this point on, because like you said, it doesn't stop, because on the 27th of August, there's going to be the back to school celebration. So I'm
Absolutely.
really excited. Gentlemen, I know both of you are very, very busy preparing for this weekend, but I want to thank you for taking the time out.
Thank you.
Of your personal time to no problem. So if both of you can, state your names, also state what's going to happen this Saturday, the location, and everything else like that, and then we'll wrap this up.
Well, I'll start real quick, Brother Benjamin. I'm Brother James Muhammad, Special Assistant to the Minister Abdul Hafeez Muhammad, and we are looking at this as the start to a movement to help our people get out of the wretched condition that they're in, and to stop the killing of us by us. And that's pretty much the reason why we came on your line today.
Right. I'm Rev Reginald Benjamin. I'm the Executive Director of Alpha Leadership Center. I'm also a chaplain, been a chaplain in Nassau County Jail for the last 19 years. I'm also the consultant for the Village of Hempstead for the Jobs and Small Business Referral Center. And this event on August 13th, this coming Saturday, I think is going to be revolutionary. It's going to be life-changing, and it's going to help break this cycle of violence within the Village of Hempstead. Because right now, I'm not so concerned about what's going on around the world. I'm concerned of what's going on in my own community.
Gentlemen, I want to give you both a round of applause and thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever.